Representative-elect Chung, thank you for interviewing with NewsMagazine Chicago.
Yes, thank you.
And you are the first Korean American elected to be a state representative in Illinois. How do you feel about that?
I'm so overjoyed, very honored, so excited. I'm still kind of trying to get used to this idea right now in my head. It still feels like it's not real. But I'm so excited for this, and for me, where I live here in Bloomington, which is in central Illinois, the fact that this area, which has not very many Asian people, not very many Korean people at all, the fact that we were able to come out and elect the first Korean American, that is a really huge statement, I think, that we're making as a community here.
And I'm sure that it was quite a special new day for you. And what have you told yourself this morning?
Well, at least I know that we worked so hard. I had an amazing team. We knocked on so many doors. I think me personally, I probably knocked on over 10,000 doors where I went door to door and talked to people about my campaign. It's just that I do think it's, the sort of Asian work ethic that we have, that we have in mind whatever goal we have, and we just do it and we get it done. And that's kind of how I approached this whole campaign. And, just kind of reflecting on that and just knowing that all our hard work paid off, it really means a lot.
I see. What are some of your goals and vision for your first term?
A lot of people here in Illinois and across the country, they're dealing a lot with inflation issues and rising costs for lots of things, utilities, rent, all those sorts of things. And what I'm really looking forward to is hopefully working with the Democrats. The Democrats are the ones that are in power in Springfield. And I really do believe that the people who are in power, who have been elected, we really do have the interest for the people of Illinois in our minds and in our hearts. So we want to really try and find some ways to relieve some of those costs and some of the burden off of the middle class, working class families here in Illinois. So I'm looking forward to getting to work on that. Either whether it's trying to find ways to reduce healthcare costs or trying to find ways to maybe give back, property tax rebates, which they already did this year, or to stop the grocery tax or to really cut down the gas tax. Those sorts of ways are ways that we can really make sure that we get money back into everyday people's pockets and to really just help people on a more immediate level here in Illinois.
And I'm sure it was an easy race. And what made you start this race, and what had you kept going?
Oh my gosh. Well, my background is that I'm a musician, so I play the violin and viola. So I don't have a background in politics at all. When in 2016, when President Trump was elected, at least for me, it was kind of a wake-up moment for a lot of people, I think, around the nation, around the United States, that we kind of started to get more involved politically. For me, always at the center of everything that I've been doing politically has been for my daughters. I have two daughters, they're 10 and 7, and I want to try and see what I can do to fight for their futures and fight for the community that we live in right now, to sort of, to see what we can do to make it even better. Just even the fact that I was elected as the first Korean American to the Illinois General Assembly, that's a huge deal. And just knowing that my kids can see that's their mom, they did that she did this, I hope to inspire other kids along the way too.
I see. And what was your strategy to win this race in central Illinois, where Republican is quite strong?
Yeah, this district was drawn to be quite competitive, where before we've had a lot more districts that were drawn to go more towards Republicans. So this was very competitive for a Democrat. And I had a primary back in June, and I came out on top in that primary. So I really have been running for this office for quite a while now. I've been really going at this quite hard since April. So we're talking over 6 months of me doing nothing but almost campaigning. So there are some times where it really was very difficult, but at least for me, I knew that I had my kids that again, like I said, they've always sort of been the inspiration of why I'm doing this. And honestly, my family too, my parents, they raised me to be who I am today. And I knew I could not let them down and just sort of let everybody else, also in my community who believes me, I did not want to let them down. So that just got me to work even harder. There was a lot of money put into the race. A lot of people here locally, news stations have talked a lot about the money that went into the race. I like to say that, the Democrats, they really saw me as a good candidate, a very competitive candidate, a strong candidate, and I did not want to prove them wrong. So while they put a lot of money into advertisements on TV and, sending out mail, I went every day, probably between 3 to 6 hours, almost every day, knocking on doors and talking to people, because I knew I had to do that for my end of the bargain of what they're doing to invest in me. So I did not want to let anybody down. So that was kind of the strategy, and I knew that I had that sort of work ethic. Again, that kind of came from my parents, that I knew I had that behind me, and that's what kind of kept me going.
And have you felt that it was more challenging as a non-white or especially Asian woman?
I think it is difficult. I've been on, this is my second race I've run in. I ran for the county board here in McLean County back in 2018. And so when I was elected, I was the first Asian ever to be elected in the history of the entire county. And at least for me, I didn't always make it an issue that I was, Asian. You look at me, I'm Asian. It's not a secret. But, I do know that sometimes it is difficult, sort of, maybe people having some prejudice already, looking at me, knowing that I look different. Also just kind of maybe sometimes people expect maybe me to be a certain way, maybe to be a little bit more quiet or not as controversial maybe sometimes. But at least for me, I've always been the kind of person that wants to sort of speak out for what I believe in, to speak up about my values, and sort of the values of my community. And that's kind of the person I've always been. So I know that sometimes that kind of changes maybe some people's expectations of what they think I'm kind of supposed to be like. Maybe when you see, especially Asian women, sometimes they are thought of being more quiet. I'm definitely not that kind of person. So sometimes I know I've kind of run into people where they've kind of been surprised that I am the way I am. But at least I think that that's what helps me be an effective elected official.
I see.
And hopefully it will help me be an effective legislator and representative.
Nowadays, more Korean American politicians are winning in both national and local elections. How do you feel about that?
Oh, it gives me so much hope, and it really excites me. I'm 44 right now. I grew up never seeing Asians do anything in politics. And maybe in my mind, I kind of thought, well, maybe this is not what we are supposed to do, But I think now we've kind of seen how much, especially here. I mean, in Illinois now, we had my friend, Representative Teresa Ma, State Representative Teresa Ma. She was elected in 2016 as the very first Asian ever in Illinois' history for the state General Assembly. And now I want to say maybe there are 9 now we have. So to think that we've really come this far, and it's kind of one of those things that you don't know what's possible until you actually see somebody else do it. That's been very encouraging for me, and especially to show from here where I live in Central Illinois, where there's not very many Asian people, Korean people, for other people to see that we can make this happen here. I hope to inspire people from all over, everywhere. If you can just get out there and work hard and be an effective communicator and be able to get your message out, anything is possible.
Tell me a little bit about your younger days.
Well, like I said, my background is in music, so I'm a professional musician. I went to Illinois Wesleyan University and Northwestern University, so I play the violin and viola. That was sort of that's still actually my profession. I still do that. And I play in orchestras around here in the area, and I have a lot of students and that I teach. And so, my younger days, I think I was just I think I was a pretty hardworking student. I was really into music. And I think but I think at the same time, I was always kind of kept an eye on political things, even though my parents weren't as involved in it so much. But at least for me, it was something that I was always kind of a little bit interested in. But again, like I said, I never saw anybody else doing it. So I never really thought it was something that I could do for a living as a possibility. So, it's something that I kind of fell into, and I'm really still sometimes kind of almost, I don't want to say confused, but just really what's the word? I sort of kind of have a hard time sort of wrapping my brain around how I got here, if that makes sense. Kind of think about like, how did I come from being this musician to now being this politician in this really historic sort of election, to win in this historic election. That sort of thing sometimes still, I don't really know what to make of it. And it's still not so totally sunk in that this is what's kind of happened, but I'm really excited for it.
Yes, that's totally amazing. Did you go to high school in Chicago?
I did. I went to Stevenson High School.
I see. And also tell us about your family now, and what do you enjoy doing most with them?
Oh gosh, I have to say, my daughters, they come because I've done nothing but the election for quite a while. They actually, they are very good campaigners. We kind of do this together as a family. They come with me to events. A lot of my friends here locally have seen my kids grow up, because when I first started, back in 2016, when we started doing a lot of political activism stuff, my youngest daughter was just not even 2. She was very young. And so, they've kind of grown up in this, and I love that that's kind of what they know, and they are really sort of active in that as well. My older daughter, she's in 5th grade, and she just ran for student council and as a treasurer, and she won.
Wow.
And it's funny because I did tell her, I said, don't feel like that you feel pressure to run for this just because it's what I do, or maybe your friends will say, you should run for this because that's what your mom does. If you feel like you can make a difference and you find that there's a job that you would be great at, then you should run for that for your own sort of reasons. Don't run for it because anybody else feels like you should. And she came back and said she was going to run for treasurer. And she made posters, and she told me she wanted to hand out little cards like I do when I go door to door. But they said that was against the rules. So she went up to kids in the hallway and said, my name is Sophie, and I hope I have your vote. So, at least knowing that that's what she sort of learned from me, I find it, I don't know, rewarding, really, and kind of flattering that, she's kind of learned by example. She knows, she's kind of seen what I've done, and she wants to try and do that herself. That's very touching, I guess, to me. And then, what we also like to do as a family, here in Central Illinois, there's a lot of open spaces, and we love to go hiking. So I guess it's sort of recreationally, there's a lot of beautiful areas down here. And so we try to do that as much as possible as well.
That's fantastic. Last but not least,
Sure.
please give final words to Korean American listeners and viewers.
Yes. Gosh, I'm so honored to be able to represent and be the first Korean American elected to the General Assembly. This is a really sort of huge milestone. I think for the Korean American community, which is very vibrant, I think, especially in the Chicagoland area, and for me to be able to do this as somebody who's homegrown from Illinois, to be able to come down here to Bloomington, to Central Illinois, to be able to win, it's a really huge milestone, and I'm so honored to be able to do that. And I know I have lots of friends who are in the Chicagoland area who have been really rooting for me all along, and I know I would not have been able to do that without them. And it's just been, I'm really looking forward to being able to do this, and I'm just so honored to make history. So, but thank you for all the support.
Representative-elect Chung, once again, congratulations, and thank you for your time with News Magazine Chicago.
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity.